Driving itself can be one of the most dangerous activities, with over 1.3 million people dying from road traffic accidents, according to the World Health Organization. And on that topic, some roads around the world seem to have been designed to only increase said risk. Stelvio Pass, Italy. If you're a road trip enthusiast, the Stelvio Pass in northern Italy is a road you'll want to look into. Snaking its way up the Italian Alps, it offers one of the most magnificent views of the surrounding glaciers. But you might not really be able to enjoy these views, well, at least if you want to get back home in one piece. At an elevation of slightly over 9,000 feet, the Stelvio Pass is one of the highest road passes in Europe. This means you gotta be extra careful about not slipping off. Given the road's nature, the chances of this actually happening are pretty high. It has well over 70 hairpin turns and a rather low barrier that makes driving here a bit of an extreme sport. Since 2008, the road has attracted international attention thanks to being named the greatest driving road in the world by Top Gear. BR-116, Brazil. One of Brazil's most important highways is also one of the longest, running from the northeastern city of Fortaleza to Jaguaro in the south near the border with Uruguay. It's about 2,800 miles long, second only to the BR-101 highway that's about 3,000 miles long. While the BR-116 isn't exactly well maintained for a road of its stature, that's not really the biggest issue with it. Much of the danger has to do with the different areas of the country that it passes through. Bad weather is especially a major problem. Combined with steep cliffs on some of the road stretches, it's been responsible for quite a handful of major accidents. Natural elements aside, the road also passes through impoverished neighborhoods that are known for gang issues. Inevitably, this is spilled onto the highway, so travelers usually have to be careful with certain spots on the road, especially after dark. Karnali Highway, Nepal. Connecting the cities of Jamala and Birandranganar, Karnali Highway has been in shambles for some time now, making it extremely unsafe despite the government's promise to fix it. Just 11 miles out of the road's 144 are good enough for safe travel. During the dry season, it can get extremely dusty and most drivers are going to have their visibility very low. The monsoon season isn't that good either. With a bit of rain though, the road's unpaved surface turns into an impassable muddy passage. Additionally, a good deal of the road consists of narrow cliffside stretches and potholes, which of course aren't the exact definition of a safe road. That's also not mentioning the occasional rockfall and landslide, especially during the wet season. It's no surprise that a majority of the highway, over 80% of it, is considered unsafe. Skipper's Canyon Road, New Zealand. Apparently, this road is so dangerous that most insurance companies in New Zealand have made it clear that drivers who run into trouble while on it are basically on their own, and you can't blame them really. Even the authorities acknowledge the road's dreadful nature that you can't drive it without a permit. This apparently gives any other person interested in taking the route enough time and perspective on what to expect. It actually does make sense if you take the road's width into account. It's so narrow that encountering another vehicle from the opposite side will significantly complicate the already complex driving experience. Also for reference, it's on a cliffside. Ugh. The road is actually quite popular with tourists, so it's usually the tour buses that make up a majority of the traffic here. It also served as the shooting location for several Lord of the Rings movies and Mission Impossible Fallout. Taroko Gorge Road, Taiwan. The 12-mile-long Taroko Gorge Road is another highway built into a cliffside. Unlike the Skipper's Canyon Road, though, it's nicely paved and has guardrails, making it considerably safe in comparison. And due to the picturesque marble around the area, the highway is quite busy, attracting a good number of tourists on top of the regular users. That's a bit of a problem as the highway is quite narrow, so there's very little room for mistakes. Include all the blind corners you'll have to keep an eye on, and suddenly you're staring at a slightly unpleasant driving experience. But that's not really the biggest issue with this road. If you happen to drive on this road, then you better hope the weather doesn't turn gloomy, because then you gotta watch out for floods, landslides, and falling rocks. Have fun, kiddos! National Highway 08. The Afghan National Highway 08 connects the country's capital, Kabul, to Jalalabad. One of the largest cities in the entire country, it's definitely an important road, but it's really not equipped to serve the kind of traffic that it currently does. Even though it's two-lane, it's hardly wide enough for two cars, which calls for some extreme caution on the driver's part. But they don't seem to care, as vehicles are always cruising past each other at neck-breaking speeds with barely any space between them. Overloaded trucks are also a big menace on this highway, as they tend to be extremely slow. No one wants to be stuck behind a crawling truck, so other drivers step up on the gas the slightest chance they get. The consequences of this are, of course, quite unsightly, with the road witnessing a handful of fatal accidents almost every single day. There's a thing called patience, people. D915, Turkey. Built by the Russians in 1916, the D915 road is probably one of the perfect combinations of the worst aspects of a dangerous road. First is the elevation, about 6,700 feet, which in itself isn't exactly a bad thing. But when you also include the numerous sharp turns that make up pretty much the entire road, the height suddenly becomes a bit of an unsettling feature. And it keeps getting worse. On top of the 29 hairpin turns that you have to negotiate carefully while trying not to fall off the cliff, parts of the road are simply just gravel. This is the majority of the middle part, also known as the steepest, which is a whole new headache in bad weather. You might also have to battle this rough side of the road while second-guessing your next move thanks to the occasional foggy and snowy conditions. The Dalton Highway, United States. The 400-mile Dalton Highway in Alaska was built between 1969 and 1974 to complement the Trans-Alaska Pipeline system. Less popularly referred to as the North Slope Haul Road, the highway was named after James Dalton, a revered Alaskan engineer and an oil exploration consultant. The present name, though, came some 5 years after the initial construction, when it was officially handed over to the state of Alaska and subsequently fully opened to public use in 1994. Much of the danger with the highway is its remote location, snaking through some pretty unforgiving environments like forests, tundras, and over the Yukon River. That being said, there are different levels of the risk that comes with using the Dalton Highway. The most perilous stretch by far is a 240-mile part that's completely devoid of any basic services, such as restaurants, gas stations, and hotels. Sichuan Tibet Highway, China. This link between China and Tibet is China's longest national highway at a staggering length of just over 3,400 miles. A good deal of this is found within the Tibet Autonomous Region, which has surprisingly retained much of its traditional ways. So there's a lot to enjoy and learn along the way. Herds of yaks grazing around, red-robed monks, and gold-roofed monasteries. That being said, getting lost in this tranquil and beautiful environment is certainly not a good idea. Mudslides, avalanches, and rockfalls are some of the stuff you should watch out for if you want to reach your destination in one piece. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are lucky enough with traveling on the highway. According to some stats, there's about 75 deaths for every 1,000 people that use the road. Guoliang Tunnel, China. The Guoliang Tunnel in China's Henan province is what happens when the government isn't too keen on improving infrastructure, which sounds about par for the course for China. The so-called road was curved through the Taihong Mountains by a group of villagers who eventually got fed up with begging the government to do something about the lack of a road in the area. For 5 years, they focused all their might and severely limited resources to bore the 0.75-mile tunnel. It eased their struggle, but without a construction expert among them, you can bet that safety wasn't really high up on their list of requirements. The tunnel features some 30 windows that offer incredible views of what could happen if a driver slipped up. And with the various twists and turns, this is quite likely if you don't pay serious attention. On the brighter side, though, the tunnel is way safer for the villagers compared to the steep, narrow stairs they had to make do with. Karakoram Highway. The 500-mile road is an important link between China's Kashgar city and the Pakistani capital of Islamabad. It runs through some of the most rugged and consequently inaccessible parts of Asia, and at an elevation of 15,400 feet, it's the highest paved road in the world. Its risky nature was apparent even before construction was completed, claiming the lives of over 1,000 workers, 200 Chinese and over 800 Pakistanis. Mudslides and rockfalls were some of the biggest causes, and even today they're a constant threat to road users. A lot of drivers also suffer from altitude sickness, which combined with a lack of barriers makes it very likely to plunge to your death into the valley below. There are plans to expand the highway, but this might not necessarily fix the safety issue, as there will be even more altitude-sick drivers. Commonwealth Avenue, Philippines. This is a bit of a unique case as far as dangerous roads in the world are concerned. Unlike most of the others, it wasn't built on the side of a cliff or in some rugged, impassable countryside. It's actually right in the middle of Quezon City, well paved with 18 lanes in its wildest parts. Despite all that, the 7.7-mile stretch is a notorious spot for fatal accidents, and it's been christened the Killer Highway. While it doesn't account for the highest number of accidents per year, the recorded deaths tend to be higher compared to the other major highways around the country's capital of Manila. Speed was the major issue here, which prompted the Philippine government to lower the limits, a move that has since reduced the number of casualties. Canning Stock Route, Australia. Like Commonwealth Avenue, Canning Stock Route isn't hanging on the side of a cliff, but underestimating its risks would be a big mistake. For starters, the road is pretty remote, so even planning for an emergency might not necessarily ensure survival in case of a problem. Either way, you might want to do it anyway. The entire 1,150-mile road is basically just barren land consisting of the three deserts, Little Sandy, Great Sandy, and Gibson. Considering that you'll need at least 3 weeks to cover this entire distance, getting stranded in such an unforgiving environment might as well be the end of ya. Atlantic Ocean Road, Norway. Found in the Nordmore district, the Atlantic Ocean Road is a well-known and even revered road in Norway. It's about 5 miles long and has been in operation since 1989, initially as a toll road. By 1999, though, the road was fully paid for, consequently leading to the fee being scraped off. Though considerably short, the Atlantic Ocean Road has quite the sharp turn, twists, and curves that makes a drive here feel like a roller coaster ride, and being close to the Atlantic doesn't help either. Strong gusts of wind and even huge waves routinely bash the road on stormy days, which is not something you want to think about considering just how narrow the bridge actually is. Include the reduced visibility that comes with bad weather, and suddenly you have every reason to stay away from this road. Ironically enough, though, driving here is considered the best road trip in the world, and the road itself is a designated national tourist route. TZN Test Pass, Morocco. TZN Test was built between 1926 and 1932, becoming the first actual road between the Souss Valley, specifically Taroudannt City and Marrakech. It's perched some 6,800 feet up the high Atlas Mountains, which means driving with the prospect of rolling down the mountainside. The lack of barriers doesn't help either, so it's up to the driver to not take the nearly 7,000-foot plunge. This is something the local drivers have either mastered or completely ignored, since they're known to cruise on the road at some troubling speeds. The road is also significantly narrow, far too narrow for these speeds and all the trucks and buses jostling for space with smaller cars. But hey, it does offer spectacular views of the mountain though, so that's something to take your mind off of the imminent danger, if you're not driving, that is. Cats and Fiddle Road, UK. Don't know about you, but personally, I have reservations about using a road nicknamed the Widowmaker. That's how the Cat and Fiddle Road is described, but it doesn't seem to deter people from using it, especially motorcyclists. Can't exactly blame them though. Connecting Cheshire, Macclesfield, Derbyshire, and Buxton, the road passes through one of the most picturesque scenes in Greater Manchester County. But considering the road's name and fatality stats, this beauty comes with a few strings attached. Extremely sharp bends, bad winter weather, and straying livestock have seen the Cat and Fiddle Road be crowned the most dangerous road in the UK. Certainly not a rosy title, which is why the authorities have been working on several initiatives to make it safer. The measures include reducing the speed limit to 50 miles an hour, installing mobile speed cameras, widening the carriageway, and installing high-friction surfacing. Col du Chelsea, France. Sharp bends arguably make a road difficult to navigate, but as long as they're sufficiently spread out, most people will manage just fine. France's Col du Chelsea is a special case though. At over 5,000 feet above the ground, the road is already more trouble than it's worth for most people, but a series of sharp bends makes it even riskier. And we're talking about a few turns here and there for the entire road. There's a specific stretch about 2 miles long that features a whopping 17 hairpin turns, and that's about enough to throw you off if you're not careful. Now it's time for the day's best pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber just like you, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it on over to us. Might even feature it in a future video. North Yungas Highway, Bolivia. At its peak usage, the Bolivian North Yungas Road was reportedly responsible for 200 to 300 deaths a year, leading to its infamous nickname of Death Road. Thankfully, the numbers today are a mere fraction of this thanks to most of the traffic being diverted to a safer route. The dangers of the highway, though, are pretty much still present as they were over 90 years ago when it was first constructed. One of the most present dangers is its crazy elevation, about 15,300 feet at its highest point and being a mere 11 foot wide without guardrails. Slightest mistake will certainly cost you a lot if you're driving here. And if you're keen enough that you don't slip up and plummet to your inevitable death, there's a good deal of falling objects to watch out for, including tiny waterfalls, rocks, and mudslides. Zojila, India. Just like the North Yungas Highway and a couple of other roads in this video, Zojila was constructed at a considerable elevation, about 11,500 feet in the Himalayas. Obviously, trying to catch a glimpse of what's down there at such a height is not the best of ideas, especially if you're prone to vertigo attacks. The risk of dropping to death, though, is far from being the only thing you'll have to make do with on Zojila. It's unpaved, which makes it even more challenging during cold weather months with all the snow, rains, and gusts of wind. Even if you could magically hold your own against these, chances are high that you might get hit by a landslide, as they're pretty common in the area. Thankfully though, the road is usually closed for pretty much the entire cold season, as heavy snowfall makes it impassable. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 20... Tongtian Avenue, China. China's Tenmen Mountain National Park is a popular tourist destination, featuring the longest cableway in the world and 999 steep steps up the mountain, glass walkways, and the Tiananmen Cave, the world's highest naturally formed arch. To reach the cave, visitors can take Tongtian Avenue, a 7-mile road known for both its elevation and 99 sharp bends. At 3,800 feet above the ground, dealing with such an insane number of twists and turns doesn't sound like a good idea. See you all next time!